If you've not heard, the Daily Wire Plus is 50% off right now. It is our best deal of the year. That is one full year of uncensored shows, exclusive series, documentaries, and more. Do not wait. This deal ends soon. Head to dailywire.com/Cyberweek to join the fight today. Britney Spears is moving to Mexico. President Trump is flying to France. And the South Koreans are declaring martial law. We will take a trip around the world. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. We have got the Daily Wire's own Mary Margaret Olohan at the Supreme Court for the biggest transgender case in American history, one that could decide the fate of that ideology in the United States. And it's a case that the Daily Wire is intimately involved in. First, though, I want to tell you about Birch Gold. Text Knowles to 989898. For those of us holding our breath for the past several months, we can now exhale. Work can finally be done on the major issues the country is facing, one of the most significant being our national debt. Fact is, our country is broke. That debt is a house of cards that cannot quickly be dismantled. For as long as the economy sits atop that house of cards, the strategy remains the same: diversify your savings. There are so many things out there out of our control, out of our president's control. That is why you want a safe haven for your savings. Birch Gold Group will help you convert an IRA or 401k into an IRA in physical gold. Best news, it will not cost you a penny out of pocket. It only takes the removal of one card for the whole house of cards to fall. Protect your savings with gold. Text Knowles, Canada WLAS, to 989898. Get your free info kit. It's the exclusive gold partner of the Daily Wire for the past 5 years. You can trust Birch Gold, as I do, to help you protect your savings. A lot of the Trump plans are going to be really, really good in the long run. There might be a little difficulty in the short run. I am glad that I have diversified my portfolio. You can look into it too. Text Knowles to 989898 today. Mary Margaret, thank you for taking a little time out to join the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
So, Mary Margaret, the case is U.S. versus Skrmetti. Mr. Skrmetti is the Attorney General of our state here of Tennessee. This is the big transgender case. We've already had one pretty big transgender case. That was the Bostock decision when Neil Gorsuch, the conservative judge, squished, sided with the libs, and wrote transgenderism into Title VII of our civil rights law, which was deeply unfortunate. Now, there's a big question over child mutilation. This is an issue that Matt Walsh has been a big leader on. Daily Wire has been a big leader on. It's all coming down to this case. Oral arguments are being heard today. What's going on?
Yeah, so this is a case, like you said, Michael, dealing with Tennessee's law banning transgender interventions for kids. And we know those are surgeries, puberty blockers, and hormones that the left likes to call gender-affirming care. They're euphemism to hide what we're actually talking about. And the Biden administration and the ACLU sued over this law, which is how we ended up here. But I think it's worth pointing out, too, this case ended up here partially because of Matt Walsh's investigation into Vanderbilt Medical Center and the procedures that they were performing on children there. So this is a case, obviously, that we at the Daily Wire care so much about. And we're expecting to hear the justices hear the oral arguments on this. We're going to see a trans-identifying lawyer arguing on behalf of the ACLU before the court, which is not something we've seen before. So I'm personally interested in seeing how the justices refer to this woman who identifies as a man. But a monumental, historic day in which the court's going to decide whether to uphold this law protecting kids. And from what I'm hearing on the ground, people are saying that they will.
That fact that you just mentioned is one of the more bizarre aspects of an already bizarre case, and I think people haven't paid enough attention to it. A transvestite is going to be the lawyer arguing the case. Usually, to practice law, you have to demonstrate that you are in command of your rational faculties. If you are a man who thinks that he's a woman or a woman who thinks that she's a man, you're not. You're obviously suffering from some major defect of your perception. So that fact alone is bizarre. I can't help but notice, though, you mentioned it's a woman who identifies as a man. Nothing is by accident when it comes to Supreme Court litigation. Do you think that the pro-trans side here picked this woman as the most sympathetic sort of character to make the case?
It's quite possible. I mean, I've heard a lot of different rumors and speculation surrounding this lawyer. For example, one conservative commentator who I really respect, Lior Sapir, said that he has sources telling him that the ACLU actually is very frustrated with this woman, Chase Strangio, because Chase Strangio is more interested in promoting transgender quote unquote rights than she is in promoting gay rights. So there's a lot of tension here when it comes to the ACLU and this individual. But, I've reached out to this person for comment on a number of occasions, this woman. We just published a story at the Daily Wire yesterday, actually, on Chase Strangio and how this is this supposedly historic moment. Carrie Severino at the Judicial Crisis Network, she told me that she thinks the ACLU knows that the merits of their arguments are not very strong. So they're focusing on quote unquote historic firsts in order to distract from that.
I wonder how strong the case will need to be, because I think a lot of conservatives are going to say, oh, good, we have a conservative Supreme Court. We have a 6-vote majority, but, Roberts is a little squishy. But then I have to remember, it was Gorsuch who gave us the Bostock case. So what are the odds that the conservatives hold firm?
I mean, when I ask the legal experts that, they always say, well, we can't predict what the justices are going to say. And I would have to err on that side as well. But an interesting fact I would like to note, Michael, is that all of the liberal media outlets, when they're covering this and they're trying to guesstimate exactly what you just said, they all point to the last election and they say the backdrop of all of this is that many Americans came out to vote for Trump on the transgender culture war messaging, which Trump leaned into. And of course, we've talked about this extensively. How Trump really focused so much money and time on these ads exposing the left's radical extremism when it comes to transgenderism. And so a lot of these liberal media outlets point to this fact and they say, this is the backdrop, so it's not looking good. I think their suggestion is that the justices will be influenced by this, and I guess that remains to be seen.
The justices look at the opinion polls. There's no question about it. Every year that goes by, I have a little bit more of a jaded take on the Supreme Court. The building right behind you is that big, magnificent court building. It's supposed to be a temple of justice. That's why the buildings are constructed in that way. But it does seem as though quotidian politics really affects these things. And I think the best predictor of how the judges are going to vote is public opinion. You saw this even after 50 years almost of Roe v. Wade being on the books. Finally, opinion had not that people had become suddenly overwhelmingly pro-life, but everyone seemed to recognize, most people at least, that the Roe v. Wade logic was illogic, actually. And so finally that went away. I think on this issue, this trans issue is a winning issue for conservatives. The vast majority of people know that men can't become women, and even if they're willing to play along for whatever reason, the overwhelming majority of people really don't want to castrate kids. So I feel pretty good about it going in. But obviously, we haven't heard the oral arguments yet.
Exactly. And you're so right, Michael, in that most Americans are so averse to this topic in general. It gets people going like nothing else. I'll have Uber drivers who don't want to identify as Republican, but then this topic comes up and they just get so upset and irate. I have a colleague who told me that her father never cares about politics, but he was motivated to go to the polls specifically because of this issue. And of course, we already know from kind of the postmortem of the election how many Americans were so motivated to vote for Trump based on this issue alone. So it really is the sleeper issue of 2024. And I think that more and more Americans are waking up to the craziness of this issue, because at the end of the day, and this is what we wrote in our story yesterday about Chase Strangio, at the end of the day, this is a lawyer, a woman who identifies as a man, going to the United States Supreme Court and saying, I think that kids should be allowed to transition, and I'm willing to tell the entire world that and stake my reputation on it as someone who has removed my own breasts and undergone surgery and hormones myself. And just that alone is one of the most wild things that you could possibly say. And it's become semi-commonplace in our culture. So, all of that is to say this is a very unusual circumstances that we've been told is common and is normal. We've been told that we should love it and embrace it. And the American people have really pushed back on that.
Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm hopeful. So we'll be checking back in, obviously. But Mary Margaret, please stay safe out there with all those lunatics who want to geld kids.
We will.
See you next time. Speaking of lunatics, Britney Spears says that she's going to move to Mexico, and she claims that she is 5 years old.
I'm not really sure why the paparazzi have me going on a plane looking like I'm wearing a Jason mask. It doesn't even look like me. I don't know why I have a torch in my hand, honestly. I think my friend accidentally gave that to me. But anyways, it's my birthday. I'm not turning 42. I'm turning 5 this year. I'm turning 5 years old, and I have to go to kindergarten tomorrow.
That was just one of many Instagram posts that Britney Spears has been making in recent days. I guess she's been making them for months at this point, but she's gone on a flurry of them, this time to say that she's 5 years old and moving to Mexico. Just to tie this back in with the story we were just mentioning, there is no difference between Britney Spears saying that she is 5 years old and a man saying that he's a woman. There's no difference whatsoever. One is not less plausible than the other. It is equal lunacy. And most people can look at Britney Spears and say that she's obviously got a screw loose and in deep need of psychiatric and maybe spiritual care. And Britney Spears is obviously completely nuts. And so then it raises another question about independence and autonomy, namely, should we really have freed Britney? 2-3 years ago, there was this campaign, Free Britney, that Britney had been under a conservatorship. Her father was running it. She was being prevented from spending her money as she wished or traveling as she wished. And so there was a big campaign cheered on by leftists and many libertarians to free Britney. Are you sure that was a good idea? She was freed. She was freed from her conservatorship, but she doesn't seem like she's flourishing. She doesn't really even seem all that free. That is the freedom of liberalism, though. The freedom of liberalism it's the freedom of the people who castrate themselves. It's the freedom of the people who say that they're 5 years old, even though they're 42. It's the freedom of people who are destroying their lives. It's a freedom that's divorced from reason and reality, but that's not true freedom at all. That's actually a kind of a slavery. Maybe we shouldn't have freed her. Maybe the way to actually encourage her to make use of her freedom is to put some restrictions on her behavior so she doesn't destroy herself. And maybe that would apply to other confused people in our society too. Maybe people who are suffering from obvious severe mental illness or psychological or spiritual confusion, maybe they need to be educated and corrected so that they can actually be truly free. Just a thought that may or may not pertain to the case at the Supreme Court today. Speaking of liberal women, speaking of women rather with a screw loose, we turn to a prominent liberal woman, Taylor Lorenz, who wants people to wear masks on airplanes 5 years after COVID. Taylor Lorenz, pretty prominent left-wing journalist who gets into all sorts of fights with right-wing journalists. She writes, quote, "Planning a COVID-safe book launch took months and thousands of my own dollars, ensuring testing, outdoor space, far UV lights, and a litany of other precautions. Meanwhile, you dumb FUCKS are out raw-dogging the air and spewing your disease-laden breath all over our elderly neighbors. We are not the same." One almost thinks that this woman might be a conservative performance artist, but I think she's earnest. And then she writes, "The pandemic is ongoing. Wear a mask and stop harassing disabled people." Why is this woman saying this? We'll get to it in one moment. First, I want to tell you about Home Title Lock. Go to HomeTitleLock.com. Use promo code Knowles. If you are a homeowner like me, when is the last time you checked on the title to your home? That is the legal document that shows that you own it. If the answer is never, you need to know about a fast-growing crime the FBI calls house stealing. I was recently shown how easy this scam is to pull off, and I'll tell you, it's shocking. There's one document, one-page document, that is called a quitclaim deed. Criminals are forging these documents by filling them out with your information, signing it with a fake signature, stamping it with a notary seal that you can get online for $20, and then filing them with county officials, and that's it. That's all it takes for your home to be transferred out of your name without your knowledge. Here's the thing. Scammers don't want your house, they want the equity in your house. So they take out loans using your home as collateral, then they disappear, leaving you with a financial and legal nightmare. You can protect yourself from this truly despicable fraud right now with triple lock protection from Home Title Lock. The first step is to check on your home's title to make sure that you are not already a victim. You can get a free title history report and a 30-day free trial of triple lock protection today by going to HomeTitleLock.com using promo code Knowles, KNWLES, or clicking on the link in the description. That is HomeTitleLock.com, promo code Knowles. Do not wait until it's too late. 5 years after COVID, Taylor Lorenz insists you have to wear that mask. Why won't you just wear the mask on the plane? The pandemic is ongoing. The pandemic is always ongoing. If you breathe, we're all going to die. Why is this? Simple answer. The left is neurotic. The left is more neurotic than the right by a lot. It's not even close. And you don't need to take my word for it. There are many scientific sources that attest to this fact, up to and including Columbia University, which wrote, American adults who identify as politically liberal have long reported lower levels of happiness and psychological well-being than conservatives, a trend that mental health experts suspect is at least partly explained by liberals' tendency to spend more time worrying about stress-inducing topics like racial justice, income inequality, gun violence, and climate change. All manner of topics that they're worried about. But let's just go to that last one, the big one there, climate change. What does that mean? It means they're terrified of death. Gun violence, they're terrified of death. The COVID, they're terrified of death. And there's an irony about this. But it shouldn't be ironic. I actually think it perfectly explains why the left is so neurotic. The left is neurotic. The left is constantly worried about death because they refuse to think about death. Think of your liberal friends and relatives. I can think of mine. They never want to talk about death. They never want to think about it. They want to put it off as much as they can. I think about death every day. That is not an exaggeration. We're in the season of Advent right now. The 4 weeks of Advent are marked by the contemplation of death, judgment, heaven, and hell, the 4 final things. I think about it a lot. I think about it when I write my will. I think about it when I try to preserve my soul and when I confess my sins to restore my soul to a state of grace. I think about it. I think about what's going to happen. And I'm not neurotic. I'm one of the least neurotic people I know, and that's in line with observations of many conservatives. My priest friend, Father George Rutler, brilliant man and writer, put this well in an Advent essay that I was recently reading. He was writing on the 4 mysteries, death, judgment, heaven, and hell. He wrote, God created us for glory, and that is why people become quietly frustrated when they have ignored these great mysteries. Angst is the neurosis we suffer when we are not listening to the voice of Christ. I think that totally sums it up. It gets down to he who will have his life must lose it. You know, there are these kinds of paradoxes. If you try to preserve your life by wearing 10 more face masks and by sacrificing your sacrifices to the sun god of climate change and by whatever, injecting yourself with some nonsense so you can live another 5 years, you're going to lose eventually. You're going to die. And there's no escaping that fact in the order of nature. So it's going to give you a great deal of angst and neurosis and anxiety. Because this is something that is on the mind of man from the moment that we become reasonable and conscious. So you can't escape that. You can either face the problem head on and come to reasonable conclusions about it, happy or sad, whatever conclusions you come to, but the short answer is that there is a happy conclusion available to you. That's the good news. Or you can just pretend the problem doesn't exist and it's just going to eat at you. And you're going to do crazier and crazier things, like wear masks on an airplane 5 years after the pandemic, or spend your nights awake in cold sweats because you're so worried about climate change. Speaking of places that require people to wear masks on airplanes, South Korea has declared martial law. South Korea, first time since 1980, has declared martial law. The president of South Korea has done it. The parliament, which has a ton of libs in it, has opposed it. Woo Won-sik, a member of the opposition Liberal Democratic Party, said the people should rest easy. The National Assembly will defend democracy with the people. However, the president of South Korea has said that there is clear anti-state behavior aimed at inciting rebellion, and it's paralyzed state affairs and turned the National Assembly into a den of criminals. And he said that these libs are colluding with the North Koreans, with the communists, who are really just a vassal state of China, the Chinese communists, and he's not going to put up with it. So the president of South Korea said that he will eliminate the anti-state forces and restore the country to normalcy as quickly as possible. On top of that, Reuters is reporting that, quote, strikes, work stoppages, and rallies that incite social chaos are also prohibited. Doctors have now famously engaged in a walkout from work, and the president has ordered them to return to their job within 48 hours. Kind of reminds me of Ronald Reagan ordering the air traffic controllers to return to their jobs in 48 hours or they'd lose their jobs. The current president of North Korea is a conservative guy. He's a right-wing guy. His predecessor was a left-winger. And so this opposition from the liberal progressive Democrats has been intense. Kind of reminds us what happens when a conservative takes over in America and the liberal Democrats gin up all sorts of anti-state forces to try to shut down the country and to try to make deals with our enemies. Why do we care about this? Why do I care about South Korea? I'm an American. It's far away. It's not a big deal, right? I care about this because 2 months is a long time to have a weak or comatose president of the United States. We all thought early November, wow, great, Trump won. It's all good. No World War III. Things are going to get better. 2 months, a long time. A lot can spin out of control in 2 months. So the South Korean right-wing leader is taking matters into his own hands. I was talking about this with a friend of mine. We were joking. I said, oh, wow, you saw South Korea declared martial law. And my friend said, well, hold on. I need to figure out which side is which before I figure out what I think about that. And it was a joke because people will think it's hypocritical to support a right-winger declaring martial law if the left-wingers are trying to overthrow the government, but that it would be bad if a left-winger declared martial law, for instance. But it's not hypocritical. It just means different people have different standards and different ends of government, and their substantive differences are real and legitimate. Also a reminder, I know this is going to be unpopular among some idealists and maybe libertarians, martial law is not only just, but also necessary in certain cases, not in every case. But we have exercised martial law in parts of America many, many times, well over a dozen times in American history. President Abraham Lincoln, widely regarded as one of the greatest American presidents, he himself instituted martial law. It happens. And the reason for that is that when your country faces an existential threat, a true existential threat, not Joe Biden saying that the mean orange mango Mussolini is an existential threat, but a genuine existential threat, then the preservation of the country becomes paramount. It supersedes the demands of local law, state law, federal law, even the Constitution, by definition, by the very internal logic of law. But what does it mean for the rest of the world? It means things are going to spin out of control a lot more before January 20th. Things are going to get worse before they get better. There's another important story to get to, but first, I want to tell you about Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks are a game changer for guys who need a little extra help in the boudoir. They are a 2-in-1 prescription treatment that combines the active ingredients in Viagra and Cialis, two powerhouse treatments. Sometimes it's not just the ingredients that matter, it is how you are taking that medicine. That is why Rose Sparks are designed to dissolve under your tongue. That is huge because dissolvable treatment hits your bloodstream faster than old school pills. So, Rose Sparks keeps you present with your spouse instead of waiting for a pill to work. Plus, tadalafil, the active ingredient in Cialis, lasts in the system for up to 36 hours. So when the mood is right, you will be ready without another dose. Find out if prescription Rose Sparks is right for you. Get $15 off your first order and connect with a provider at ro.co/Knowles, Knowles. That is $15 off at ro.co/Knowles. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Only available if prescribed after an online consultation with a provider. Speaking of authoritarian government, a man has been escorted from the Edison, New Jersey town council meeting. He was dragged out by security. And do you know why? What was his offense? He waved an American flag.
Wrong. I'm holding up an American flag to represent the constitutional values.
I'm going to have to give you a warning, and if you continue, I will have to forfeit. You'll have to forfeit your time.
Well,
Sir, you're forfeiting your time.
It's my constitution. It's my constitutional right to do this. If you get sued, you will lose. My suggestion to you is that you get a second opinion from competent counsel because you are wrong. You are interfering with the performance of this meeting by interfering with the right to speech of a member of the public. You're interfering with free speech, and it should stop now. I'd like to continue.
They didn't pass the law yet.
And there they are. There are the cops. Cops are showing up to drag this guy out for the crime of waving an American flag. Why were they throwing him out for this? Well, this municipal council had set an ordinance for proper decorum in these meetings, and part of it was that they're not allowed to use props. No one speaking is allowed to use props. So, okay, I understand that in principle. Just as a rule of political advice to the genius politicians on the Edison Town Council, it's never a good look to punish someone for waving the American flag. Doesn't look good. I don't care. You can justify, no, but we have this ordinance and it actually pertained to all sorts of props. And yeah, okay, doesn't look good. That's not going to persuade anyone. And the point that speaker was making is a very good one. The point that just the visuals of him getting thrown out for waving the flag. Because that happens in a lot of places. I remember when I was in college, now a while ago, my freshman year was 2008. One of my roommates had gotten an American flag. We flew it out the window of our dorm, and it was controversial. Even then, even in 2008, it was considered controversial. I think eventually we had to take it down. And it was based on one of these, you're not allowed to fly flags or whatever. But I guarantee you, had we flown a pride flag or something, maybe in those days, I don't know. Today, if you flew a pride flag, no way could anyone order you to take that down. And had someone shown up at this town council meeting and waved a pride flag, do you believe that the police would have dragged them out? It would have become a big civil rights story. The ACLU would take up the case, would probably drag the case all the way up to the Supreme Court. Because the true flag of our political elite is the rainbow flag. And it's not even the rainbow flag anymore. It's that kind of terrorist rainbow flag. The one with the BLM stuff in there too, with the triangle. And that's their flag. That's the flag that they pledge allegiance to. That's the flag that stirs their heart. That's the flag that would bring a tear to their eye. They don't like the American flag because they don't like what the flag stands for, which is the country, the American nation. They want to erase the nation by erasing borders. They think that everything that has ever happened in American history has been awful and marred by all sorts of injustice and bigotry. And in the present, we're in a crisis. And in the future, when we transcend America, when we, to use the words of Barack Obama, fundamentally transform America, they hate America so much they want to fundamentally transform it, then we'll have a new country which will be good. And the new country needs to have a new symbol, and the new symbol is going to be the rainbow or some derivation thereof. That's the political reality that we're living in. The American flag in 2024 is a subversive symbol in the United States of America. Speaking of the lib parts of the country, Gavin Newsom, Gold Mussolini, Governor Patrick Bateman is launching a $25 million anti-Trump legal fund, taxpayer dollars in California, to fight the president.
We are preparing for that. That was the whole point, is the whole point of the special session. We're not going to be caught flat-footed, and we want to be prepared as early as January 20th, and that's why the special session is important. We also have a brand new legislature coming in, a lot of new people, and this will be an opportunity to engage and convene, talk about the previous 122 lawsuits. Again, we reacted to the assault. It wasn't a proactive litigation strategy. It was a reactive strategy. I hope there's not one lawsuit with Trump administration. As I said, open hand, not a closed fist. No governor in California worked more closely. No governor in the country, I would argue, Democrat, worked more closely, Democratic governor, with Donald Trump than I did during COVID. Same time, he took $1 billion of your high-speed rail money. Same time, he tried to take your crime grants. At the same time, he tried to vandalize most of the progress of the last half century as we were getting along. So again, no one's naive. I've been there. We have the receipts. We know exactly what he intends to do. He's been very honest about that. And there's nothing to suggest the last 2 weeks that he's not even more hell-bent on doing it.
Mark it on your calendars. The 2028 presidential election is already on. And this guy wants it. He wants to be the Democrat nominee. And he's good. He reminds me of Bill Clinton in his prime. Now listen what he did here. That Trump, he took $27 million of your money and he wanted to do this. And we're going to put it over here and I feel your pain. He's even got that little Bubba swagger going on. Look, I don't like him. I think it was Edmund Smirk who calls him woke Caesar. He's not good. He is not good, but he's good. He's not good in a moral sense. He's not good for the politics of America. But he is good at politics, this guy. And as of now, he might be the front runner in 2028. He is taking 20. It's so ironic. He's whining about Donald Trump supposedly diverting tax dollars from California, while he takes tax dollars from California effectively to give himself a publicly funded campaign fund. Now, what do you think that $25 million is for? To fight the Trump administration. Do you think that's really to protect the interests of the state of California? No, that's to buy him $25 million worth of publicity to seem like the face of opposition to Donald Trump. And it's probably going to work. Why is he the front runner in 2028? Because he didn't run this time. They sent up sacrificial lamb Kamala Harris, and this is further proof that Gavin Newsom is really good at politics. You remember back when there was a Republican primary in 2024, which most people forget at this point because it didn't go very far. There was a primary, at least for a lot of it, the leading candidate in the primary who wasn't Donald Trump was Ron DeSantis. Gavin Newsom had a televised debate with Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis won the debate, but it almost didn't matter. It was Newsom putting himself up there as the real leader, the undercard. And DeSantis was kind of the undercard, as was Newsom in his party. And then the real race was between Biden Trump and then Kamala Trump. Well, now, looking ahead to 2028, Newsom's looking like the guy. And he talks good, and he looks good, and he's moving money around, and he's making serious plays. The race is on. This is one of the strange facts about having a president serve a non-consecutive second term. It's clearer when the president just serves a consecutive second term. But with a non-consecutive second term, we have all of this excitement. It feels like a bright new day in America. But Trump is term limited out. So he'll have a good run of probably 2 years where he can really get things done. He'll have unified government for 2 years. It's probably going to become harder in the midterms. Usually incumbents lose the midterms, their party. And this time the Senate map is going to be really tough. But the race begins now. And who is going to run? Kamala, give me a break. Joe? Jimmy Carter? I don't know, maybe. Maybe those guys will run. But it's Gavin Newsom. Mayor Pete. I think Mayor Pete's kind of done. Maybe he'll try, but I don't know. Maybe he'll run for governor or something first. Can you name anyone? Tulsi Gabbard, she's a Republican now. Bobby Kennedy, he's a Republican now. Who are you going to... Who's going to run? I don't know. I think it's Gavin Newsom. Right now, he's the leading candidate. Get your act together, Democrats. They're going to have a tough time doing that. Meanwhile, President Trump has announced plans to travel to Paris for the opening of Notre Dame de Paris, one of the most famous cathedrals in the world. He writes, "It is an honor to announce that I will be traveling to Paris, France, on Saturday to attend the reopening of the magnificent and historic Notre Dame Cathedral, which has been fully restored after a devastating fire 5 years ago." This restoration, which a lot of people feared was going to turn Notre Dame de Paris into like a Holiday Inn or something, it looks like they did a good job at it. The cathedral is 860 years old. It was burned down. We still don't really have a good explanation as to how that fire started, and we're not really allowed to ask questions about it. But it cost about $700 million, and there's going to be a big ceremony. And in any case, the president-elect is going. And this is a really good thing. It's a really good signal, because it means that President Trump is thinking of his presidency not merely in national terms, but in civilizational terms. As well he should. The United States is the global empire. It is the leader, certainly of the West. For now, it's still the leader of the world, but at the very least, it is the leader of Western civilization. And we need to start thinking in a civilizational way. One of the real problems of liberalism, one of the real problems of modernity, is we only think of ourselves. We don't think about the nation anymore. We're all citizens of the world. We're citizens of nothing. We don't have borders. We don't think about the state. We don't think about the family. It's just the individual. It's me all the time. And that's going to lead to our civilizational collapse. It already sort of is, because we don't have children anymore and we're killing ourselves, literally. We need to think, good, okay, we've got a restoration of nationalism. That's good. That was the N word. You weren't allowed to say it. But now, since Trump 2016, we can think about the nation again. Not merely communities and states' rights, but even about the nation. But we need to think bigger than the nation. We need to think about civilization. I love America. My family's been here since the Mayflower, okay, which is the name of a great cigar brand. However, Our roots go back further than America. And the great triumphs of what was once called Christendom, now we call it the West. The great triumphs go back much, much further, and we have to preserve them. And one of those great triumphs is the Cathedral of Notre Dame de Paris. And we need there to be some civilizational coherence. It's just like with a family. If the family all splits up, they're all just going to die out. There won't be a family anymore. If a molecule splits up, there's no more molecule. And if a civilization is just off doing its own thing, totally disconnected, no care for its past, no care for how it relates, each member relates to one another, then there is no civilization anymore. And it would be a real shame if the greatest civilization in the history of the world were to allow itself to die, which is currently what we're doing. Needs some strong leadership to turn that around, and President Trump, I think, is signaling that he wants to provide it. If you've ever thought about joining DailyWire Plus, now is the time. Our best deal of the year is here, but it ends this week. 50% off new annual memberships to DailyWire Plus. Let me say that again, 50% off for an entire year of DailyWire Plus. That means 1 year of uncensored daily shows with limited ads, access to our entire entertainment catalog, including Am I Racist? And Dr. Jordan B. Peterson's new series, The Gospels. For families, unlimited access to our kids app, Bent Key. Already a member? Well, it's the holiday season. Give the gift of DailyWire Plus and save 50%, 50, on a gift membership. Never been a better time to join. DailyWirePlus.com/cyberweek right now. No code needed, 50% off. Join the fight today. My favorite comment yesterday is from Garland of Books, 4494, who says, Joe Biden pardoned 3 turkeys for Thanksgiving this year, breaking the presidential record. That is my kind of pun. That's a great point. And he did. That's exactly what he did. Speaking of killing animals, an Ohio woman has pled guilty to eating a cat. Please put another digit on the board for President Trump. Here it is. I have it. We were told it was fake news. No one's eating cats in Ohio. This woman just pled guilty to eating a cat. Now, I should note, she's not Haitian. She's not from Haiti. She's not of Haitian descent. And it's not in that town, Springfield, where all of this is supposedly happening. But it's close. It's not that far. I think it's 150, 175 miles away. She was arrested in late August after killing a cat by stomping its head and then eating the cat. She was found squatting next to the cat, which was dead. She had blood on her feet and hands and fur on her lips. Yuck. She was asked, "Did you eat the cat?" And she did. There you go. There you have it. I don't really have anything else to say about that other than they are eating the cats, and they're probably eating the dogs and the ducks and the geese as well. Very disordered behavior. The left is going to try to debunk this and say, no, it wasn't the exact kind of person within the exact place. I don't know. It's not. There it is. She pled guilty. Boom. Liberals own. I didn't think the liberals could be owned any more than they already were, but they are. Speaking of critiques of Americans, Ronnie Cheng from The Daily Show has just explained the Trump victory by calling most Americans effing morons.
Covering the election live in America was both a dream come true as a political historian junkie, U.S. political history junkie, and it was also like watching a car slowly crash into the country, and there's not much you can do about it at that point other than make dumb jokes about it. I come from a conservative country. There's nothing inherently evil or bad about a conservative mindset. I just think that we would like to have conservatives who are not morons. That's probably what it is. You know what I mean? And like.
Yeah, he says we because he's from Malaysia. He's a Malaysian citizen. As far as I can tell, he's not an American citizen, though he's lived here for a long time. So he says, yeah, we're different from you guys. We're fine with conservatives, just not the ones who are effing morons. So who are the effing morons here? The effing morons he's referring to are the people who voted for Trump. But most people voted for Trump. So he's saying most Americans are effing morons, which raises a question to me. And it's going to sound hyperbolic and provocative, but it's not really. Why don't we deport him? Why do we tolerate him here? What does he add to America? You would say, well, he's on a TV show. Yeah, he's on a TV show that no one's watched in like 20 years. He's on a TV show that no one has watched since Jon Stewart left, and that people still don't watch anymore, even when Jon Stewart guest hosts. I had not heard this guy's name before this clip went viral. He, as far as I can tell, again, I don't know everything about this guy, but as far as I can tell, he takes pictures holding the Malaysian passport. I don't see any evidence that he's an American citizen. So what's the point of him being here? Anyone who's shocked by that, who thinks that's a provocative, hateful statement, I guess I have to ask, what's the point of immigration? What they will say is, the point of immigration is to respect people's right to go into our country. They have a right. Foreigners have a right to be in America. They have a right to our resources. They have a right to our relatively strong economy. They have a right to our civil order, which seems to be fraying, but it's better than a lot of places in the world. They have a right, they have a right, they have a right. They don't have a right to that. What are you talking about? They're not American. I don't have a right to Malaysia. I don't have a right to Timbuktu. I don't have a right to just go there and use their resources and live there. And I don't have any right to that. Most places in the world, if I tried to go there and I didn't provide a really strong reason as to why I should be there, they'd kick me out. Why don't we do that here? The problem, it's not even just this guy, though I would have no problem deporting him. The problem is that we just fundamentally misunderstand what immigration is for. It's supposed to benefit us. It's supposed to benefit our country. Do we allow some hard cases in who are seeking asylum, who are in hard? Yes, we do that out of charity and out of grace and of course, mercy. Sure. But that's not the rule. That's not what it's for. Immigration is for helping us. How does he help us? How does inviting a lot of people in who hate our country and hate most Americans, how does that help us? Doesn't help us at all. We misunderstand what immigration is for because we misunderstand what nations are for. Because we misunderstand like everything now. We misunderstand what political community is, what we're here for, what we're doing. We're just so confused. And it's really infuriating that we would allow ourselves to be degraded in this way. There are a lot of places. If I went to Saudi Arabia right now, and I called the Saudi royal family a bunch of effing morons, I would not remain in Saudi Arabia very long. My head would probably not remain on my body for very long. Why do we tolerate this? Speaking of the culture war, Kamala Harris's deputy campaign manager has just come out with an obvious fact that is nevertheless a stunning admission coming from the left, namely that the left is losing the culture war.
And for the masculinity piece of it, men don't like people that apologize. I don't know what age bracket, but it's called standing on business. If you say something, you mean it. Trump does not apologize. If he says something, he means it, and his party stands behind him, and they don't make him backtrack it. Mm-hmm. And that type of infrastructure doesn't exist. We're also getting creamed online. There is a cultural dynamic that's at play in politics today where it is converging like we've never seen.
And we're losing the culture war.
And we're losing the culture war. And whatever it is, woke, whatever word you want to use, I'm not, I leave that to anybody to define on whatever value.
We're losing the culture war. That's true. The libs are, there's no question, they're losing the culture war. They're losing, think about the people who shifted in this election. A lot of has been talked about the 1 in 5 black guys who voted for Trump. Shocking number, given the Democrats' stranglehold on the black vote for all of our lifetimes. The 46% of Hispanics, the majority of married women, the almost half of women 45 and over, 44% of women under the age of 45, 40% of women under the age of 30, shocking numbers. They were all moving over. Why? Why is well, because Trump's in the pop culture. He goes on Joe Rogan, he goes on Aiden Ross, he goes on all these shows. But why else? Why does Joe Rogan exist? Why does Aiden Ross exist? Why are people tuning out the establishment media? MSNBC posted ratings the other week that are like public access cable news numbers, okay? I mean, we're talking really, really low stuff. Local kind of numbers. Why are people tuning all of those out? I was speaking to a journalist from a liberal outlet the other day, and he asked me, he said, Michael, he was acknowledging that the left is losing the culture war. He said, why can't the left do what you guys have done at the Daily Wire? Why can't the left do what the alternative media have done, have their own media? And I laughed at him. I said, well, you tell me. You have that. You had that at least. What do you think CBS, ABC, NBC, the New York Times, CNN, the Washington Post, what do you think those are? That was the liberal media. The problem is not that the libs don't have media. Are you kidding me? The problem is that people are tuning out those media. And the reason they're tuning them out is they don't have credibility anymore. They've lost the common sense. They've lost their authority, their ethos. The people find them, the reporters and the anchors to be dishonest. So they're tuning into someone else. Getting right back to the case we were talking about at the top of the show. All these people on the left have told you that the man that you see before your very eyes is a woman. Well, not me. Right now you're looking at me. But and I don't think most of them have called me a woman. But they tell you that a man can be a woman and that it's good to geld your children. They tell you things that everyone knows at just a gut level just are not true. And that they know at a rational level are not true. And so they've lost the common sense. If they want to win the culture war back, they have to get back in touch with reality. And I don't think they want to, which is fine by me. Because then we can keep winning, and I love it. There's no member block today. I got to go to New York. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. I'll see you tomorrow.